Hey everybody, how's it going? It's Mike with Turn of the Century Games. Today, got a special little tutorial video for you guys. Well, I guess it's not really a tutorial. We are going to be trying to restore this game cartridge. Now, this game cartridge in particular is a San Francisco Rush 2049 cartridge. As you guys can see here, the label's a little bit worse for the wear. There's some various marks and scuffs all over the case, as well as some discolorations. And then actually, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take this apart because I want to show you guys the most egregious problem with this cart. So let's go ahead and pop these screws out. These are 3.8mm game bit screws. Always important to have a place to put your loose parts. And today I don't seem to have one. So we're going to make do. I'm just going to set them here on my secondary monitor stand, they do not get lost. So, I do want to point out, this is not my cartridge. This is my friend Cody's cartridge. He got this through a Facebook Marketplace sale. This was part of a bundle that he got. This is by far the worst cartridge I've ever personally seen. And like I said, I'm going to show you why. It's not even necessarily because of this label, although this label is pretty atrocious, and he's already given me permission to go ahead and replace that. So let's start by lifting the back off of this bad boy. And okay, so it's not quite as bad as I thought it was going to be. So you can still see that the shielding here is still intact, still looks pretty good. I do need to take these two screws out here. Let's see, this little flathead will do that, even though this is a Phillips. So let's go ahead and get these out of here. And I will show you guys why I say this is probably one of the worst cartridges I've ever seen. Now, I usually do cart restoration on like Game Boy games or Super Nintendo games. This is the first N64 game that I've done. And just as a quick side note, if you guys do want to get into game collecting like Cody is, the N64 is a great console to get started on because the game library is only like 300 and some odd games, and right now most of them are very reasonably priced. There are a few out there that are, you know, a bit more pricey, like Paper Mario, that runs you about 70 or 80 bucks on average. But for the most part, the N64 library is very, very well priced, and you can get them relatively easily. So with these two screws removed, we're going to go ahead and we're going to carefully pry this shielding up. Now if we flip this shielding over, you guys can see on there, that is rust. So this shielding has been rusted, and that has in turn led to, here's the card itself, well, here's the board itself. You guys can see on the other side of the shielding there's more rusting going on, and then there is on the cover here, there's some, as I drop it, this is just a plastic cover, so there's no rust on this, but there is some residue and stuff. You guys can see that. It's really gross. And then the actual board itself is covered with some mild corrosion. Let's see if we can get this to focus. Focus, please. Let's see here. Can we get you? Yeah. You guys can kind of see there's some mild corrosion going on there. Flip it over. Yeah, so it's a little worse for wear. But we're gonna go ahead and we're going to get this all cleaned up, and I'm gonna show you guys how to do that. So the first thing that I would do with the shieldings here, this is actually really easy to clean. You'd clean it up just like you would any other metal. In our case, I've got some, 150 grit sandpaper here. That should clean this up pretty well. You just kind of, get in there, get it all cleaned up as best you can. And you'll just slowly take the rust off. I'm not going to do that on camera much more than that, so you guys can see it's already coming off, doing what it needs to be doing. That I will do off camera and show you guys the end result when that's done. As for the card itself, so the board itself, the way that I clean these is pretty standard. you have 70% alcohol. I prefer to use 90, but 70 is all I had on hand. And if it comes down to it and I really, really need to get this thing clean, I do have a nice bottle of acetone here. You have to be very careful with acetone, especially when you're cleaning old carts. You want to make sure that you don't get it on any of the plastic parts, and the alcohol and the acetone both, you don't want to get them on any of the labels. Now with this particular cart, I am going to be replacing the label, so I'm going to be showing you guys how to clean up the shells as well, my process for doing that. So first, let's go ahead and we'll start with the circuit board here. So first thing we need some Q-tips, handy Q-tips. You know, you clean your ears with these. But first thing we want to try is we want to try the alcohol, and I actually am looking now and I have another bottle here that's much smaller. It's already here. Didn't realize that was there before I brought the other bottle in. So we're going to just start by just trying to clean up these contacts as best we can. And you guys can see right there, we've already got some discoloration on our Q-tip. That means that this is in fact working, which is great. It means that this is going to be a relative, look at that. Look at that, that's gross. This is going to be a relatively easy clean job, I would hope. This is so disgusting. All right. So we've got these pretty well cleaned, and actually these teeth look to be in pretty good condition. There's only one that really bugs me or concerns me, and that's the one right in the middle here. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get this to focus well enough so that you guys can see it. However, let's see here. This is awkward. I'm not used to doing this. But you can see there's some corrosion along the middle traces there. Yeah, along this, the very middle tooth. Come on, focus. Yeah. Anyways, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to just kind of thumb dry that off here, so I can get an idea of what's going on. Alright, so there is a little bit of black that could really be anything. That could be water damage, that could be mold, that could be anything. Really, realistically, that should have came off with the alcohol. Focus back in here. There we go. But so what I'm going to do, just to be sure that there's nothing extra there, is I'm just going to use the acetone. Now, you want to be, like I said, very, very careful when you're using acetone on any of your stuff, especially when you're, you know, trying to clean old cartridges. You don't really want to use this unless you absolutely have to. And you really don't want to get it on anything plastic. If you get this on anything plastic, it will eat it away. It is highly corrosive to plastics, so keep it away from your plastics. So I actually dunked that in there. I'm actually going to squeeze it out into the bottle here because I don't need a lot of it. I'm going to wipe the excess off on my pants because I don't have any cloths or anything around, and we're going to do the same process, what we did with the alcohol. We're just going to go back and forth across the teeth, and then I'm actually going to go ahead and I'm going to like scrub each individual tooth here to try and get them as shiny as possible. That way there they make the best possible contact. And then once I have gone across every tooth, I'll take another look at it and we'll see how it looks. Okay, so I've gone over this entire board, all the teeth there, both sides with the acetone. And let me see if I can just get this zoomed in a little bit here. Bring this back over this way, and we're going to kind of try to slowly bring it in here for you guys. Alright, let's get this focused. Focus, please. Alright, so you guys can kind of see there. It's a little blurry. I do apologize for that. But you can see there, We don't have a ton of gunk on the teeth of this anymore. They are fairly clean. However, you can see up here along the tops, there is a little bit of discoloration still. Same on the back or on the front side here, although not nearly as bad. So what I'm actually going to do to get just that little last bit of corrosion off, I am going to go ahead and I am going to take the sandpaper. We're going to sand it off just a little bit. You don't need to do this a lot. You just kind of take it, you go with the grain of the teeth. So just kind of come down them like this. And then once we've done this, we will actually go ahead and just wipe it off with another Q-tip, clean with alcohol. So let's go ahead, make sure that that's all. Like I said, you don't want to do this too much because these teeth are rather thin. Let me go ahead and get this refocused for you guys. The teeth are rather thin, so you don't want to be scratching too much of them because you can actually go ahead and wear them down to the point where there's no contacts left. And of course, then the cartridge is just straight up not going to work. So you always use the finest grit sandpaper you have available. Usually I use mirror paper. That's the sandpaper that's used for polishing mirrors on cars, but I don't have any at the moment. All I had is this 150 grit. There's this 160 grit. I don't even remember. Yep. I don't know. It's not printed on the back. I think it's 150 grit sandpaper. It's fine enough that it works. You don't want to ever use anything like 60 grit because that's just ridiculous and you're going to do more harm than you are good. So once we've got that sanded, we'll just go ahead and quickly polish these off with the alcohol. And that will clean up the actual cartridge, or well, the actual circuit board. You guys can see there's some green forming on the Q-tip there. That's from the solder mask on the circuit board there. Just kind of get that touched up. Perfect. Alright, that already looks a lot better. Okay. That looks really good. I'm happy with that. So let's set that to the side. The next part that we're going to worry about is this plastic bit here. So this plastic bit acts as a shield that sits on the cartridge like this, and it just makes it so that the cartridge has space when it's basically like a protector so that nothing would get in behind the contacts here and ruin them. And this has clearly done its job because we don't see any of that corrosion or any sort of extra crap going on with any of the pins or the chips that are in place on this board already. So this was definitely a good idea by Nintendo to include these. To clean this up, I'm just going to use another Q-tip and some more alcohol. I guess I have the back side of this one that I can use. You could also just dunk this bad boy in a bucket of hot soapy water, which is effectively what I'm going to do to the cartridge shell itself when we get to that point. Look at that. That is so gross. So very gross. I mean, blech. Alright. Finish getting this cleaned up here. Doesn't take much to clean it. Like I said, it basically just comes right off with the alcohol. You don't want to use acetone on this because this is plastic. Remember, acetone eats plastic. Do not use acetone on plastics. Ever. Unless you don't want them to exist anymore. The only time you should ever be using acetone on plastics, in my opinion, is if you're 3D resin printing. And even then, you only use a splash of it in a giant vat of rubbing alcohol. Alright, that plastic bit is clean. Now, like I said, to get these shields clean, you'll just sand them up Not that big a deal. Just get in there, put a little elbow grease into it, sand them up. Be very careful when you're doing this so that you do not bend them. So make sure that you always have something providing pressure on the back side there. When you're doing this, you could probably use something like 100 grit. I wouldn't go more than 100, you know, bigger than 100 grit. Like, I wouldn't use an 80 or a 60 on this. Honestly, this 150 seems to be doing a very good job. So 150 is probably my recommended grit for doing this. Coming off pretty easily. So the one little problem area that I'm running into is this little lip here, where the lip is. So might need something like a ruler or something like that to actually press the sandpaper in there. I'm just gonna fold mine in half and hope for the best here. Seems to be working. And once I get this all cleaned up, I am gonna wipe it off with alcohol just to remove all of the dust and everything that I'm creating by doing this. Because you don't want that dust, like any little metal, bits of metal dust floating around in the cart. That could be bad because you might short something out. Just go ahead and get it cleaned up as best you can. It doesn't have to be perfect because that rust really isn't going to hurt it. It just kind of, you know, makes it look bad. Alcohol. Just wipe it up real quick. You guys can see that's coming off swimmingly. That dirt, gunk, and everything that's just built up from years of never being cleaned. I mean, you gotta remember, these games came out in the late 90s. This is 2023, so you're looking at, what, 25 years or more for some of these games? Let's go ahead and use the dry side here to just kind of... So yeah, I'm thinking this cart might have come in contact with water at some point, which is why that has happened. Or, you know, might have just been sitting in like a damp basement or something. Something like that, because this is not normal for an N64 cart. However, very, very easy to clean up. And like I said, you could actually go ahead and use the same method that I used to clean the circuit board for this game on pretty much any cartridge-based game, whether it be a Sega Genesis or a Super Nintendo or a regular Nintendo. Hell, I'm pretty sure you could do it with an Atari Lynx if you really wanted to. Anything that uses cartridge-based systems, you could probably do this with. I don't have anything other than the main consoles that like everybody had. The Genesis, the Super Nintendo, the NES. But I imagine any cartridge-based system you could very easily, you know, clean this part of it up the way that I did. Let me go ahead and sand this one up. Okay, that looks pretty good. Go ahead and grab another Q-tip. Actually, I got another one that's perfectly fine to use here. Clean that up. Okay, and we're gonna let that sit and air dry as well. Now, it doesn't have to be perfect. I mean, if I wanted to be a perfectionist, I would, you know, spend a lot more time sanding that down. But it's smooth now. It doesn't have any of the grit of the rust on it anymore, so we are good there. Let me go ahead and zoom this camera out just a little bit. All right, so let's see. What else do we have to work on here? Oh, right. Let me get the camera in the right spot here. So let's get these out the way. The next thing that we have to really work on is the actual shell itself. Now, the shell, like I said, the label itself is in pretty rough condition. I will be replacing that. Normally speaking, if you're looking to collect or you're looking to resell, it's best to never replace the label unless you absolutely have to. Keep the original labels intact, because even if they're, you know, marked up a little bit, say they got some Sharpie on them or something, you can very carefully, you know, there are ways to remove that if you are careful. If you've ever got a permanent marker on like the shell or anything like that, there's ways to remove that as well without damaging the shell. And I might do a video on that at some point, but Cody's not planning on reselling this game. He's just keeping it for himself, and he wasn't really happy with the condition that the label's in. Clearly here in the middle, it's almost down to the plastic. That's how thin it is. I can feel it. So we're just going to replace that. This back label, however, I will probably keep intact. I will try to clean it up a little bit because it's got some marks on it. But basically, the way that we're going to clean this guy up is we are going to use a couple different things, and give me just a moment and I will show you what those are. Okay guys, so I did go ahead and take my phone off of its stand so that I can kind of show you guys the condition that this case is currently in. You can see there's a lot of discoloration on the back half of the case here. That should clean up fairly well with warm soapy water. You want to be careful when you're using buckets of warm soapy water to clean cartridges, especially with your labels, because the water will damage these labels very, very easily. Which is why I'm not too terribly concerned about this front label. But you guys can see on the front here, there is some minor discoloration. It's not too bad on the front side, but the back side is absolutely horrible. And I will be right back with the stuff that I use to clean that, and even probably a large bucket of water. Be right back. Okay, everybody. So, I am back. I have obtained the large 5-gallon bucket of water. And you're probably wondering why it's white. Well, that is because we used this. This, if I could get it to focus, is LA's totally awesome power oxygen-based cleaner. This cleaner can be found at Dollar General, Family Dollar, one of those dollar stores nationally here in the United States. This is basically dollar store brand OxyClean. However, in my personal opinion, it works a lot better than OxyClean. So, how are we going to clean this guy? Very simple. Just drop him in. Literally. That's what you're gonna do. You're gonna drop it in there. You're gonna let it sit for 5 minutes. About 5 minutes. You're just gonna let it sit there. Now, if you care about your labels, you're not gonna let it sit there. But if you don't care about your labels, like I don't in this particular instance, you're just gonna let it sit there. And it's gonna sit there and it's going to work its OxyClean magic. And then you're gonna pick them back up out of there. And you're probably gonna have to rub them a little bit, but then the dirt's just gonna come off. And I will show you guys that once it's done. Okay, everybody. So it has been roughly 5 minutes, somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes here. I've gone ahead, cleaned up a little bit, put a bath towel down on my workspace here, because normally I would do this part of the process in my bathroom, just because it's easier to clean things, wash things in there. But I'm not going to take you guys into my bathroom because that's just weird. Okay, now that we got that out of the way, let's reach into our bucket here, and we're going to grab our first shell piece, and it just so happens to be the front. So we're going to cap it on our bucket here, knock off the excess water, and I'm just going to flop it on here. Now, I do have another towel here so that I can dry my hands and whatnot. All right, so we're just gonna pat this dry and we're going to flip it over to kind of get a look at it. Let's go ahead and get you guys zoomed in a little bit here so you guys can see what's going on. Whoop. All right, let's go a little further. There we go. Whoop. All right, you guys can see that now. So we're going to just take the cart. Personally, I want to look it over. Let me go ahead and turn on my big old ring light here so I can get some better lighting. Oop, maybe. There we go. Alright, so this shell, this half the shell, actually looks pretty clean. It's not too bad. Not in bad condition at all, really. And most all of the dirt or problem spots have already come off. Now, there is a little bit right here on this edge. But that just came off. Felt like some adhesive or something. So let me, since that feels like adhesive, it's like sticky. You know how you get that that old sticker feel when you pull something off of, you know, a sticker off of something? That's the feeling I'm getting there. So let's go ahead. We're gonna go with some alcohol. The alcohol is going to dissolve all that sticky for us. So I'm just gonna take it right along the edge. Again, this is alcohol, not acetone. Alcohol. Even still, you do not want to get alcohol on your cartridge labels, because if you do, well, you are probably going to ruin your cartridge label. Again, I don't particularly care about this cartridge label, nor does Cody, so if we end up damaging this cartridge label a little bit more, it really doesn't matter. We're just gonna kind of one over this just a little bit here. Just kind of one over this side. There you go. Okay, just kind of wipe it off here. Yeah, that already feels a lot better. And this side also has the same deal. It's got some sticky stuff on it. Now, of course, the LA is totally awesome. Will not take care of the sticky material, so no need to call me out on that. But it does do a really, really good job of helping to start the process of removing stuck-on grime and all that stuff. And like I said, personally, I feel it does a better job than national brand OxyClean. Because it does. Okay, that looks pretty good, except for the label. The label clearly is still crappy. And in a separate video, we're going to replace that. But I am totally happy with that side of the shell. So let's go ahead and dry off the interior here a little bit. Normally I would let these air dry, but you know, obviously you want to try to get as much of the water out as possible. Okay, gotta give it a little shake here. Second half. Let's see here. So this is the back half. Now, you guys remember how bad this side looked, right? Well, allow me to show you what it looks like now. I'm gonna just go ahead and dry it off. I'm not gonna do anything else to it. I'm gonna show you guys what this LA is Totally Awesome did to this cart just sitting in that bucket. Literally, this thing was just sitting in there, and I just pulled it out. Look at that. That, I mean, aside from the label, that is beautiful. Like, you guys can actually see, I didn't see it before, there's sticker residue here. That is actually part of a sticker that I had not noticed prior to putting it in there. That's like tape or something. Let's take that off. Look at that. That stuff just peels right up now. Further proof that that front shell did have a sticker or something on it. I'm not going to worry about cleaning this back label up too much, like I already told you guys. But I am going to go ahead and just kind of one over this real quick. I'm going to go over it with the alcohol Q-tip. Just to kind of get rid of that extra sticky there where that tape was. Not a big thing. Like, this already looks a million times better than what it did when I first showed it to you guys. And it's going to look even better once we get a brand new label on it. A little bit of gunk there in the Nintendo logo, see if we can get that out of there. Oh yeah, that's coming out. That's coming out real good. Okay, so there we go, guys. That is a cleaned, mostly clean. There's a bit of sticky residue here that I can see. That's how I clean up cartridges. So I'm just gonna let these cases sit here. They're gonna air dry, and we will see where we are at after that. Okay, guys, so San Francisco Rush 2049 in the Nintendo 64. There it is, powered on. And here's the game running. So, we were able to successfully go ahead and restore this system to, or this game rather, to a working cartridge. So, if you guys enjoyed the video, please be sure to like, subscribe, comment, and get the bell on for all of our notifications. Also, make sure that you follow us on our Facebook page at Turn of the Century Gaming. I also stream on Twitch from time to time at Sons of Ocelot on Twitch. Till next time, guys, I'm Mike. This is Turn of the Century Games. I hope you all have a good one.